This is Autoline Daily, the show dedicated to enthusiasts of the global automotive industry. Well, happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. While there will not be any parades or pub crawls today, I'll tip a pint to all of you later this evening and drink to your health and continued safety. The Autoline crew started preparing for this crisis a month ago, and we now have the technology and processes in place to continue bringing you all of our programs. I'll have more to say about that later in the show, but now let's get to the news. And as you know, it's doom and gloom in the auto industry as automakers, suppliers, and dealers all over the world are bracing for a big drop in sales due to the coronavirus. Auto plants in China are starting to come back on stream, but they're closing down all across Europe. In the U.S., automakers are keeping their assembly lines running, but UAW workers in several plants are demanding time off to self-quarantine, and they want more hand sanitizers in bathrooms and cafeterias. Amazingly, Auto Forecast Solutions reports that many assembly plants from GM, Ford, and FCA are scheduled to be running on overtime this month, including 8 plants from GM, 6 from Ford, and 6 from FCA. But sales are undoubtedly going to fall dramatically, and we bet that overtime will get tossed out the window post-haste. So to entice customers into showrooms, General Motors began offering 0% financing for 7 years. Ford is allowing customers to not make payments on a new car for 90 days. Hyundai's also offering deferred payments for 90 days, and it will make car payments for 6 months for any new car buyer who gets laid off. But the timing of all this could not come at a worse time for the launch of several new cars. C8 Corvettes are just starting to show up at dealerships, and Tesla just started deliveries of its Model Y. But you know what? Tesla will likely weather the storm much better than most automakers. For one thing, it too is keeping its assembly lines humming at its plant in Fremont, California. For another, most of those Model Ys are pre-sold, and customers are eager to take delivery. So Tesla will not have to lure customers to its stores, and besides, they can do all their ordering online from the comfort of their homes. And OMG, that diesel emission cheating scandal at Volkswagen, which started nearly 5 years ago, is far from over. The company's chief financial officer, Frank Witter, says the scandal so far has cost VW over 31 billion euros. That's about $34 billion. And of course, they're paying that in fines and settlements. And he is warning investors they may have to pay another 4 billion euros in fines next year. That's a lot of money, but when the scandal first broke, some analysts believed it could cost VW as much as $70 billion. So I guess it could have been a lot worse. Often when we're talking about technologies that suppliers are working on, we end the story saying, and so expects this to hit the market in the next few years. That doesn't always happen, but here is one example where it did. We've shown you a couple of versions of Continental's 3D display, and it just announced that the new Genesis GV80 will use it. The 3D display doesn't require goggles or glasses. Instead, slanted slats divide the image so 2 different, slightly offset views reach the right and the left eye, which your brain processes into a 3-dimensional image. The system also uses an interior camera to detect the driver's head position, and it will adjust the 3D view to that. Continental says it's developing another 3D system that doesn't need an interior camera, and it's smaller and lighter, and it should go into production by 2022. As you know, there's different rules and regulations for different regions of the world. For example, a single global vehicle model with left and right-hand drive variants might have up to 12 different headlamp combinations. So the lighting supplier Hella is out to change that. Each individual pixel in its new world headlamp can be adjusted by software according to the region that it's going to be used in. Hella says the new light will launch this summer in a premium manufacturer's vehicle. And that's going to make car assembly a lot easier because automakers can now install one type of headlamp no matter where they export those vehicles. In Europe, the Ford Kuga, which is known as the Escape in the US market, is the first vehicle in the automaker's lineup to feature a mild, a full, and a plug-in hybrid option, and we've got more details on the plug-in. It combines a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder Atkinson cycle engine with an electric motor generator and a 14.4 kilowatt-hour battery pack. Ford said the Escape plug-in would get over 30 miles of range in the US, and when we convert the Kuga's 56 WLTP kilometers to EPA miles, it comes to about 31, so there's really no difference between the European and North American versions. Ford says it's going to offer 18 electrified vehicles in Europe before the end of 2021.
Autoline Daily is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires. Your journey, our passion.
Honda's making a big push with hybrid vehicles. By 2030, it says hybrids will comprise 50% of its global vehicle sales. And to achieve that, it added a hybrid version to the CR-V lineup. In fact, the company expects it to become the best-selling hybrid in the US. It's powered by a 2-liter 4-cylinder Atkinson cycle engine and 2 electric motors. It's rated at 38 miles per gallon combined, but in our time behind the wheel, we hit over 40 mpg. However, that was in limited driving time and in admittedly ideal conditions. There are 4 driving modes: normal, sport, eco, and EV, which do a good job of changing the driving dynamics of this crossover. You can also use paddle shifters to adjust the regenerative braking, which also improves the driving experience. Its real-time, all-wheel drive system works smoothly and gives you confidence when the road conditions are not that good. And we guess most people wouldn't realize it's a hybrid unless they were told about it. Inside, the interior is nice, the seats are comfortable, and the dash isn't cluttered with too many buttons. And while there isn't as much cargo room as with the gasoline version, engineers were able to package the battery so the second-row seats can fold flat. The CR-V hybrid is built at the company's plant in Indiana and is on sale right now. It starts at just under $29,000. And speaking of Honda, it goes to great lengths to make sure its designers understand what's going on inside its manufacturing plants so they can design products that can be assembled more easily. On last week's Autoline After Hours, we were joined by Rob May, the Vice President of Honda of America Manufacturing, and his wife Gail, who works at Acura's plant that builds the NSX. And they talked about why Honda makes its designers work on the factory floor when they're designing a new vehicle. Take a look.
We're trying to use more collaboration between the designers and the people that actually touch the parts. You know, we spend time having the designers come to the factories to understand exactly what it looks like, what it feels like to do the process. Actually had designers do the process, so they kind of understand. You know,
all right, so wait a minute. You have a designer.
Under the watchful eye of our experts.
So you have a designer go in and is working, doing a job on the line.
Yeah, that's not out of the realm of possibility for us to consider doing things like that, because again, it bridges that gap between what designers think and what our manufacturing technicians think. And it also, I think it builds a relationship. So when we do need subtle changes to a process, there's some understanding as to how difficult processing that is. I mean, looking is one thing, but when you actually put gloves on and put parts on the car, certainly it takes on a different dimension.
Yeah. What's interesting about that too is every one of us, when we started at Honda, that's kind of our culture. You start on the assembly line. So I'm an engineer thinking I'm hiring into an engineering job, which I did, but it started with about 3 months working in every department, working on the line to understand what does it take to actually put a car together, to build a car. Yeah. So that just taught us a lot, so that in the jobs that we're in, we need to understand what they're struggling with, and then we negotiate them with the design side to make sure that it's something that we can actually manufacture.
And of course, you can watch that entire show right now on our website or our YouTube channel. And we're going to continue to bring you Autoline After Hours, even with the coronavirus crisis. Coming up this Thursday, we'll have Jeff Trumbull, who came up with a simple but brilliant way to improve just about every manufacturing operation. You are going to be impressed. And we're going to do all of the show remotely, with all of us participating from home, which is going to be another technological first for Autoline After Hours. But that's it for today's show. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow.